told you that Carpinteria Club is a sponsor of the Junior Carpinteria of the Year. We're very excited about our candidates this year. They're phenomenal. If you went to the Park Children's Project breakfast the other day, you would have seen that the Carpinteria Club was a sponsor of that. So this is all look like membership dollars. Membership is $45, and that's good for that year. It's proactive. And we don't have any formal process for members. If you want to join, if you want to support the Women's Club, it's a check for $45 and that's it. Now that's in contrast to the old days where a woman's husband had to recommend her. Just as like that. But
we're out of that.
We're super excited to bring back our dear friend Beth McDonald.
Yay.
Why is
Yay.
And I was trying to think how many times Beth has been here.
At least 4, maybe 5.
I think this might be the 6th. I was trying to remember because we used to do a Valentine's portrait, and it was just like which signs are compatible, and it was standing in the moment. Everybody wanted to know why things were maybe not working out as well as they thought. Beth has done so many other presentations for us. She's truly a rare talent in this field of psychic services. And she's one of the few American psychics that has an intersection in business and law and political issues. And she has worked with CEOs and governments and politicians and career civil servants and business owners and people like. And she combines ancient wisdom with modern methods and creates an integrated approach that fosters peak-performing individuals and high-performing cultures. So we'll soon find out her methods are fun, they're effective, they're scalable, and they are rich and rewarding. So with that, Beth is going to share with us some tools on divining our own intuition, which lives in each and every one of us. So I give you Beth McDonald.
Welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here. Just to bring me in here. So here we go. I want to thank the Carpinteria Women's Club, not just for having me and having me here so much and being so much fun, but you do so much in the community, and we are all better for you being here, and especially Mary Beth and your sister. Good Lord, you were like persons of the year every year. Like, what? Congratulations on your award, but good Lord, it's like we just like make it Our Lady in perpetuity. So thank you for that. I'd like to thank my team and my family, Dr. Eric Lutz, my husband, Rowan Daly of Rowan Daly Photography, Diane McKenzie, videographer extraordinaire, and Jessica McCree Edwards of Wonder and Wit. She does all my graphics. Anything you see of me, she made. And yeah, she gets it. No, she's amazing, and I can't recommend her high enough. So thanks for that. And I'd like to thank you all for being here. Quick housekeeping for those who haven't been here before with me or may not remember. I do this really differently. I really am interested in a dialogue and a conversation, because what I know after years and years of public speaking is there is always such a gamut of experiences in the room, and I don't like talking over people's heads, and I don't like boring people. So I'm just saying that. So anyway, I'm going to stop a lot and ask if there's any questions. And if you have them, ask them, because if it's occurring to you, it's occurring to at least 3 other people. So please, I want to give you permission and just like straight up ask. And then at any point, if what I'm saying is not making sense to you, ask that too. A lot of people will say wait till the end with your questions, and I'm not that guy. So off we go. Yay. Oh, I missed. Sorry, Jess. Thank you. And next. Okay, I always do a dedication because it's part of my gratitude practice, and because I just would not be here if it wasn't for the people who came before me. And on this particular topic, I can't say enough. There are 2 categories of elders. One is my bloodline, my ancestors, because some of them really did show me the way and give me permission and then kind of push the way they did. And then the other category is our locals. And then that category bifurcates. God, I'm gonna cry. And some of you were there, so thank you. Thank you for holding that space. There were the elders of the business community, and a lot of them, the women in the 80s, they were the first generation of women to be able to be entrepreneurs, to be able to have their own bank account, to be able to have their own credit cards. Was that what I mean? And so these women had so much experience, and they were so passionate about their businesses, and they made me the businesswoman that I am. And I had been a marketing consultant first, and when I kind of came out of the closet, so to speak, with the psychic stuff, I was really terrified they would reject me. And they looked at me and they were like, honey, we know you. You're a straight shooter. You wouldn't be messing around with this. If this is happening for you, we believe you. And they supported me, they gave me a chance, they welcomed me again. And so there's my elders, there's the business community, and then there's the metaphysical community. And Peggy knows a lot of that. Susan Powers, Pam Osley, of course, with the Solnar, Jennifer Frieden, Dorothy Boswell, all these women, and Gary Douglas. He was the one who literally said, stop running. You have to embrace this part of yourself. And I am eternally grateful to him. So those are all my thank yous. There's more, but those are big ones. So yeah, awesome. Okay, I've been waiting years to use this quote, and I finally, this is the moment. Here we are. Yeah, right? And this was what that experience was like for me. When a wise elder of the tribe turned to me and said, hey, a series of them, sequentially and one right after the other and in unison, had said, hey, let's do this. You've got to do this. We'll help you. And they did, and here I am. And the main takeaway was, there were several. One of them was, actually I want to back up. Both Susan Powers and Pam Osley sat me down and just said, look, even though this is California, and even though this is the late 80s and the early 90s, this is still a foreign concept, and a good part, oh my gosh, a good part of what you're going to be doing is educating people and normalizing this. And for women, it's even more important because of forever this has been women's wisdom, and we have been shut down, we've been killed, we've been burned at the stake, we've been ostracized, a lot of things in religion and in business and in politics. And so bringing this out into the world is a huge part of the work. It's not just the readings, it's not just the coaching, it's educating groups of people and often individuals about like what this is for you, because it's really personal, and what this means and what it can be and what to do with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions so far? Cool. All right, go. Yeah. Yes?
What is intuitive mean? What is that? I don't understand.
That is a really good question. I'm going to get into that in great detail further on, but I could skip to that. Let's just do that. Intuition is synonymous with psychic abilities, and there's several different kinds of it. You know, there's the clairvoyance that is seeing, where you literally see dead people. There's clairaudient, where you hear them. There's clairsentient, which is by far, I think, the most common, where you get goosebumps or chicken skin or hair on the back of your neck or those things. It's different for everybody. Some people get warm in the chest. Some people get cold in the lower back. The most important thing is to understand what yours is. There's also what they call clairsentience, which is for me that lightning strike knowing, where just in the blink of an eye or less, you know something you shouldn't know. You would have no logical linear way of knowing. And that's pretty common too, and I think that's what scares a lot of women. I think that's what got a lot of women killed. We just shouldn't know things that we know we know. Things that we know. Does that help? Does that make sense? Okay, we're going to thank you for that, and we're going to dig deeper, and at any point, chime back in, okay? Yeah. All right. So let's see. Let's go to the next one. Okay. There are a number of things that can compel or impel your intuition to take front and center stage, or at least a more prominent place in your life. And I'm going to tell my story because in the shamanic tradition, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, in the pastoral Christian tradition, even in 12-step programs, you share your story so that people know what's possible, people know where the brackets are, how big the realm of normal is. Again, we're trying to get this to a place where it's more normal, less weird, less strange, less crazy, so that when it happens within you, you're all like, oh, hey, welcome back. It's like a homecoming, part of you coming home. Does that make sense? Cool. So anyway, I had just been your average college graduate. I got in on the ground floor at the Independent. I was a writer and an intern, and I made a name for myself writing. And then people started bringing me business projects, and Diane was there for that, where it was like, you want me to do what? I'm writing about ballet. Yeah, so I did that, and I was good at it, and then I started just doing that as a living, as a business consultant. And then I had that guy, that's my son, Abel Hamilton, and he blew the doors off. And this was the beginning of a series of moments in my life where I thought I was losing my marbles, and somebody in authority turned to me and said, oh honey, didn't you know? That's normal. That's normal. And yeah, so I had him, and it blew the doors off. Then I had a couple of car accident related head injuries, which is another thing that will open up your intuition. And at this point, if you're starting to think, wow, like God really was like pushing you, like I felt like I was on a moving sidewalk with no exit, where I was just like, my fate was pushing me in a direction, and I didn't like where it was going. So I was going to a lot of therapists and psychics and trying to like get them to tell me I was nuts, and nobody said that. They all said the things earlier where it's like, oh honey, embrace this part of you, and I couldn't do it. And then one day I went and put the baby down for a nap, and I walked into my living room, and there, so I didn't skip a step, yes, were my grandmothers. And having been raised in the church, I've always been someone who prayed. Now, who I'm praying to often varies depending on the moment. And after my son was born and I started having so much trouble, I broadened my scope. And it wasn't just the organizing forces of the universe, it was the angels, the archangels. Even though Baptists don't do those, I was throwing them in. And then I became acutely aware of the psychological aspect of motherhood, how there's certain things you just cannot protect your children from, the inevitable parental wound. You will always wound them somehow, some way, despite your best intentions, despite how much you love them. And I was like, oh bummer, you know. But I was also aware, like so many of us, we have some very interesting characters in our genetic line. And our family, different branches of the family tree, and I was like, how am I ever going to talk to him about them? And so I started praying and calling on the mothers and the grandmothers and the great-grandmothers and the aunties and all of them. And so when I came in the living room that day and saw them all, at first I was scared, but then I could feel the love. And I knew they loved me. One of them I had been her favorite. I was named after two of them. You know, they weren't going to hurt me. And I looked at them and I just said, hello, why are y'all here? And they said, you asked. You asked for help. You asked for help and we came. And so I share that because so much of our intuition is really the voices of the gods, the voices of the saints and apostles and disciples of all these different religions across time and space. There are so many possibilities, and yes, some of them are not so cool, but most of them are divine. And so for women, I believe, to really fully be actualized in the world, we have to acknowledge, well, all humans, I'm sorry guys, but because women have suffered for this in ways that men never have and probably never will, I think it's really important, and I think it's more important now than ever. So yeah, I think that's all on that. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Which lady is your father's mother and which is your mother's mother?
This is my father's mother,
Uh-huh.
and then my mother's mother is this guy.
Okay. And who's this sweet lady on the end?
Oh, this is Elvira's mother. She was Florence Spencer Chandler Ford, and she was a strong gal. Yeah. Yes.
I'm curious, when you walked into the living room
Yeah.
and they were all there, do you mean like their photos were there or their presence was
Their
there?
presence.
And you felt them?
That was the
Or
first
saw them?
time I was actually clairvoyant and I could see dead people. I had had a number of really intense psychic experiences between the time I was like 2 and about 29. Some of them were auditory, where I heard a very loud, very strong male voice in my right ear. And it was telling me what to do or what not to do. And then when I was 17, I had had one of those spontaneous past life bleed-throughs. I had gone to Jerusalem, I'd gone to Israel as an exchange student in 1977 because I wanted to see where Jesus was. And I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. People had been fighting over that real estate for God knows how long. And I was like, there's gotta be something to this. I knew I would have some sort of massive experience, and it wasn't the one I thought. But I got out on one of those scenic overlooks, kind of like the pass at 154, got out of the car, looked at the city, and this breeze came up. And suddenly, I could smell horses, and horse sweat, and horse poop. And then I looked down, and I was wearing one of those Teutonic tunics over chainmail. And I was standing in front, well, what happened first was I smelled a lot of unwashed people. And I was like, okay, and I kind of looked and I was like, okay, I'm at the head of an army and this has to be during the Crusades at some point, and no one else I'm with is seeing this. And I'm stone cold sober and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, this is a thing. And so I was like, I'm just gonna tuck this away for now. And yeah, I had experiences, the gift runs on both sides of my family for generations, but nobody had used it professionally. It was more of a family thing, and more of a, small sharecropping communities, and it was like people helping people for the most part. Or when my father went to war, my mother would have these prophetic dreams, and she would always come with the other wives with them. So this was a part of my lexicon. I just did not figure it would become my life, and it wasn't, good Lord, it wasn't what I went to college for. Like, this was, my husband always jokes, there's not a booth for this at Carpinteria. Yeah, okay. All right, so, again, part of the reason I'm doing this and part of the reason I'm sharing my own story is that your personal evolution and relationship with your own intuition is uniquely personal to you. Everybody's is really different. So again, whatever you've gone through, whatever you've experienced, whatever you may have happen next, we want to keep remembering to pull it out of the category of strange or weird or crazy and put it back into the category of normal. This is my path, this is my process, this is just what mine looks like. And it's part of my hero's journey. I don't know how many of you here are Joseph Campbell fans, but the man is brilliant, his work is life-changing, and it helps explain why one person's life is so different from someone else's. Especially as women, we do way too much comparing one to the other, and it's not helpful. Everybody's path is unique and special and different to them, and it's purposeful. And there's universal things that shape our experience, like just navigating life on the planet. External things we can't control. Wars, crazy politicians, things that can make us feel, thank you, can make us feel a little out of control, that we have to figure out. And then another factor that shapes your experience is your family and your community. And you know, the people and the places where you get support. And then the places where you don't, and how you manage that, and that kind of thing. And then, you know, your personal hero's journey has a lot to do with your karma and your life purpose. Why are you here? Why did you incarnate or reincarnate? And what did you come here to do? What's your life purpose? What are your superpowers and your skills? And then what are your life lessons and your liabilities, that kind of thing. Any questions? Yes?
So what I'm curious about, particularly because I know that in terms of the geographic layout of Santa Barbara, that it's unique on the planet, you know, with Findhorn, and then I find it significant that obviously Pacifica's here, and Joseph Campbell's papers, like everything he's ever written, is at Pacifica. I mean, there's some very profound material held in the archive there.
Right.
So I'm just curious how that all
Well,
fits in terms of you.
I don't believe in coincidences. And, you know, you and I have been here long enough. In the 80s, we used to joke about, like, the people who washed in, you know, the natives, people who were born here are so rare. And then the locals, the people who have lived at least half of their lives here, are so rare. And then the rest is a fairly transient population that kind of washes in and washes out. And we used to joke about how, well, everybody who washed up here for a reason. And for some of us, especially, good Lord, those of us who study astrology under Jennifer Freed and Dorothy Boswell, they were teachers at Pacifica. They studied with Richard Tarnas, who is a major thought leader and a founder of the CIIS up in the university up in the Bay Area, a leading university for these kinds of studies. And it's just one more piece of evidence for me about divine providence. It's like not everybody resonates at this frequency, but if you're here, there's something to it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just gonna mention that Summerlin was founded by spiritualists.
Yes!
And it still is a spiritualist church on Garden
Yeah.
Street.
Thank you
And
for
good
that.
services.
I actually gave a talk about that a while
The
back.
big yellow house is like
Yeah.
the center.
Yeah, there's just a lot here, and then if you think about it, the Santa Barbara was named after Saint Barbara because somebody washed up here on Saint Barbara's feast day.
Yeah, and she's
And
the saint of a good
refuge
death
here.
too.
What's that?
She's the saint of a good death.
Right,
Yeah. so
right.
it's all-
Yeah, like her canon, her pantheon, her whatever you call it, her brackets, man, they're big. And it works for me, especially as someone who was raised in the military. You know, she's the patron saint of armorers and artillery. And yeah. So, anywho, yes.
So, and I hope this isn't too far off track, but the other thing that intrigues me is Santa Barbara is so instrumental in terms of the environmental movement as we know it now, and as it was formed back in 1969. And I find it interesting because when you think about Summerlin and the number of oil wells that have not been capped yet from that period, and it just seems like such a contrast.
Well, Well, this is Earth, and we're humans.
Got that. I find it interesting.
We don't make the kind of sense we'd like to, or we think we do. And that's part of why we keep having to go back inward to what we know to be true within ourselves, our souls, our intuition, our connection to the divine, our connection to the earth. And that's actually one of the exercises I'm going to do for you in a little bit. One of the tricky parts about being a human, a big soul in a human body is staying grounded. And then what happens if you're sensitive, if you're creative, if you're an empath, if you're using your intuition a lot, or if you're a trauma survivor and you have PTSD or complex PTSD, we tend to squirt right out, or at least up a good ways. Keeping grounded and in your body is really, really hard. And so when I was first training, the first series of exercises are multiple layers of redundancy grounding exercises. And so I was going to give you the first one, maybe two, depending on how things go. Does that sound good? Cool. Questions? Yeah.
I just have a comment just because is the idea of that bringing in this is a light. And so like what you're talking about with Santa Barbara, there's a positive energy here. And so it's going to draw in. So, you know, the fact that Refugio's just been reopened, there's a bit of a target because there is so much light and potential here. So I wanted to name that.
I'm so glad you did that because there's a concept, there's a couple of concepts that as you like really drill down, it becomes really important. And one of them is the concept that's so prominent in so many religions, Hinduism and Buddhism and even part of Judaism, that life on this planet is 50-50. It's 50% good and it's 50% bad. It's 50% light and it's 50% dark. And so the challenge before us as humans is to figure out how to stay focused on the light and deal with the darkness because we can't completely eradicate it. We can just navigate it with greater grace. And then, I don't know how many of you saw Sinners? Yeah, yes. I'm so happy about that movie because it reminded me of something I was taught when I was first coming up. And it has to do with the concept of light and dark and how light attracts dark. And one of the biggest impediments for humans, especially women, in shining your light and developing your light and being your authentic self is that it's going to attract weirdos. And we all know what weirdos can do. And bad things happen to women, you know? And so the most important thing I was taught was to learn how to be smart and learn how to be safe, but don't be afraid to be the light, to shine the light, to pursue the light, to expand the light. There's just ways to do it. Yeah, okay, good. Any questions? Cool. Okay, I want to rip through a couple of things real fast. Having to do with the astrology? Yes, okay. Certain astrological transits are going to be like pulling the rug out from under you, and it's going to shake you up and ask you to step forward, and we're in a bunch of them right now. Like, I have never seen this in 35 years of doing this. And so, go ahead. Yeah. The first one has to do with Chinese astrology, and I have Mary Beth to be one of the, she was one of the first ones to say, she sent me, she coupled me on Instagram, she sent me a reel, and it was some woman I had never heard of talking about the interplay between Western astrology and Chinese astrology on this transition from the year of the wood snake, which is all about shedding your skin and letting go of old patterns and beliefs and behaviors and shit that doesn't serve anymore. And then the year of the fire horse, which is just unbridled forward motion. And so for a lot of us, it started in December, and it felt like we were launched out of a gate. Chinese New Year wasn't until February 17th, but for a lot of us, it was like we were way down the road by then. And so if you are feeling it, there's a good reason for it, especially now. I'm not an expert on the Chinese bit, I don't know which years or which animals, and I don't know which years or which elements, but I know enough to know it's real, and then the two of them really overlap and sync the way they're doing right now. It's like a portal opening. It's like a big opportunity, and so part of the reason I'm doing this is just to encourage you to pay more attention to how this is manifesting and happening in your own life. Trust the voices in your head. Okay, next one. Okay. I practiced Western psychological astrology because it was there, and I walked into the right room at the right moment, and I took to it like a duck to water. Oh, you are a goddess, thank you. So we look at transits. The belief is that every planet has an energy, and the energies are things that we can feel, like the moon controls the tides. Saturn and Neptune are very, very different. Saturn makes things clearer, Neptune makes things fuzzy. Saturn is the material plane, Neptune is the spiritual plane. So when these buddies get together, things get interesting, and it happens about every 36 years, and every time it happens, there's a major change in political situations, political governments, political philosophies, as well as the collective consciousness. And we're there. So we've got the Chinese astrology, and we've got Saturn and Neptune, and then what that led me to in conversation with different people was that we're also having another manifestation moment. For those of us who are old enough, we've been around this block before. Remember the harmonic convergence? Remember the rapture? Remember the Mayan prophecy? Like, people get way off down the road with some of these belief systems, thinking that the age of Aquarius even, it's all going to be groovy and wonderful, it's just going to change. The externals are just going to change. And so one of the things I've been spending a lot of time talking about is history, and that we don't, it's not necessarily the opportunity for the external changes, it's the opportunity for the internal changes that lead to collective choice, where we can vote different people in, or we can do different things with our budgets and our money. Does that make sense?
Can you repeat that sentence? That was good. Something about it was internal to external.
Oh golly, who was that?
Okay.
June Adams, June Parker, she was a poet in the 70s. And she was the one who first used the phrase, we have to be the change we want to see in the world. And so what I always tell people in moments like this that are so spiritually powerful, go inward first, and then use your intuition to listen to where you're called to participate in your community. And again, for some of us it's easier than others, and even if it seems weird, don't say no. I wouldn't have been invited to meetings with the mayor if I kept saying no. You know, I'm a psychic. I get invited to the wildest places, and it scares me a bit. And just don't say no. Just be open and trust that you're there for a reason. And you have choice in how you participate. Does that make sense? Yes.
Why does it scare you?
Oh golly. That's a really good question. Part of it is because I didn't seek this out. This was not what I wanted to do with my life. I studied comparative religions and cultural anthropology. I wanted to be the next Margaret Mead. And so I kind of am. I'm just in a different realm. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of Harry Potter. The wand chooses the wizard. Yeah. And Harry didn't do that either. Harry didn't dig his either. Like, it's very common for us to be setting off. We think we're setting off in one area of life. What's that other quote? Life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. That was it. That was me. That's still me. That is still me. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm better. I'm better, and it's thanks to a lot of you that I'm better. But yeah. Okay. Next. Okay, now this is huge. This is absolutely huge. The inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and the sun. They're what we call personal planets. And in astrology, they tell us about your personality. The 5 outer planets, the ones after this asteroid belt, are the interpersonal planets. They're the planets of transformation and change. And we have a rare moment right now where all 5 of the outer planets are direct. There's absolutely no retrogrades right now. This hasn't happened in so long that I can't find experts who can tell me. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. One of the ways that astrology has become accurate is through what they call forensics or historical astrology, where you go back and you look what happened every time Saturn and Neptune was conjunct. And that enables you to better prepare for whatever is going to be happening or is happening right now. And so there's a wonderful, brilliant man named Chris Brennan. He was the editor of the Rocky Mountain Astrologer, which is the biggest magazine in astrology internationally. He's the biggest name. He has a wonderful podcast. He's incredibly educated and informative, and you can really get down some rabbit holes. You can really geek out with him. And I'm at the point where I'm about to contact him and just say, could you please research this and do some podcasting on it, because I can't find it. I can't find it. And like, it's probably 1,000 years. I'm like, it may go way, way back. And so, anywho, the reason I'm talking about all this is like when there's so much happening with all of the outer planets that are about transformation and change, you have a huge opportunity to move some material, especially if you've got things that have been bugging you for a while, or material that you haven't been able to move so far, or haven't been able to move to your satisfaction. It is a process. But when you've got all 3 of these astrological things happening at the same time, all pointing in the same direction, you've got opportunities. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So what was the next one? How many of you are feeling it? Yeah. Okay. So I think the next one had to do with, because personal growth and change is often not fun. This is another slide I've been waiting to use for years. And I love this story because A, they're funny people, and B, this came to me at a time of darkness during 2001 after September 11th and all the chaos and weirdness that was going on after that, and people going to war and whatnot. But apparently about that time, he got diagnosed with cancer. And she is famous for her interviews about that time, where when they sat down and they got the test results from the doctor, the first thing out of her mouth was, how do we make this fun? How do we make this fun? We forget. Like, part of what we're doing is normalizing it, but normalizing our hero's journey. And then part of what we're trying to do is have more fun with it. Right? And so again, part of the reason I love this group and part of the reason I've invited some of the women who are here is like, you have helped me make this fun. So thank you for that. So, next. Oh yeah, the other thing for the skeptics, I am just a geek enough to, actually, and this is what helped me last in politics and business, is like knowing our history, like where astrologers and psychics were in every single religion, in our historical record, in our oral traditions and myths, and even now our movies, books and movies. And so it's, again, trying to get back to make this normal is a huge deal. Okay, next. Everybody has psychic abilities, we've talked about that. Next. These are what I was talking about earlier. There's being able to literally see dead people, there's hearing their voices. Often you will hear them before seeing them, and often seeing them can mess with your head so much that a lot of people shut it off or shut it down, and then you will get stronger abilities in these other areas. Another place where where you will get it. Another way you will know if you're really sublimating your intuition is you will have more prophetic dreams. And so if you're not already keeping a dream journal, that's a really good thing to do. And then looking for patterns with that. Does that make sense? Any questions? Oh, that's like trance channeling. And that is much harder to do. It's it's very hard to be comfortable with. It's basically where you are inviting an entity in to speak through your mouth and to take charge and take control of your body. And very few people have the courage to do it. It's very hard to do it well. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, we used to have a number of them here in town and we don't anymore, yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm glad that she asked that, because in the it was late 80s, kind of, there was a number of channelers that were related to a lot of the women that you were talking about. And it was interesting because I was working with an astrologer, and or not an astrologer, but an acupuncturist. And she said, because I was involved in some of these groups, and she said, Diane, you have enough on this plane. And so is channeling that much different than the other types of intuition, or?
I think it is. I think it is because it requires a level of surrender. The most popular one in history is Edgar Cayce. And he was so good and he was so clean and they had it down to a science. And historically, I don't think there's been anybody who can compare to him. The Seth, is close, but it was darker in some ways. And yes.
What about the mindful teachings?
Those are also there. Yeah, it's in that category. There's not for me, the proof actually I don't want to say that word. The most compelling thing about Edgar Cayce was that he did it for decades. He did it for decades. And the what do they call it? In Virginia Beach? The Institute, Cayce Institute or Cayce Museum or something like that, there's the material there, the recordings and the transcriptions are just incredible.
I did just want to put out there too that intuition doesn't necessarily have to be from the dead, because I think sometimes people don't feel comfortable with that concept of dead contact. But if for me, it's useful for it to be my own inner sense of knowing that will come to me, whether that's angels or Mary or, but it's not necessarily the dead
people.
Yeah, because that creeps people out sometimes.
It really does. It creeps me out. I've been doing this for a long time. The other thing I want to say about that is there is a school of thought, and I believe it, that when we incarnate, when we're on the other side, we are God. We are part of God. It's one organism. It's one unit. And then when we incarnate into a human body, a sliver that happens to be our soul, splits off and comes in. And so a lot of times I really think that intuition is just the divine within, the God within, us reconnecting or remembering how to talk to that part and how to give that part more license in the course of our day. Yes.
How to listen to it.
That's the other thing. Yeah, that's the other thing. And in intuitive development trainings, they talk about how it's really important to have a daily spiritual practice, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. You can pray, you can meditate, you can do Sufi dancing, you can do yoga, whatever. What matters is that it helps you cultivate the capacity to listen. Yeah. I get in a lot of trouble for that, but I really believe it. Yes?
How do you search yourself and find that path for your intuition to work?
That's a really good question. I have put on some of the chairs before I realized I didn't have my tech act together, a handout. And then yes, there's more on the back table. And basically it's a series of journaling exercises where you can begin to practice listening to yourself and then see what happens. It's
So your dreams, your conversation?
Yeah, what started for
Any
me.
long thing?
Oh, golly, okay. Basically, you start with whatever your intuitive hit is. Like, oh, I should go to the grocery store right now. Or, my favorite one is, this happened to my husband. We live on the Lower East Side by that bank that always gets robbed. And, he was running a bunch of errands, and the bank is the closest, and it was like, he usually goes to the bank first, and he was like, I don't wanna do that, I wanna go here, and there, and the other place, and then by the time he got to the bank, it had been robbed, and all the cops were there, and it was in disarray, and it was just like, oh, I'm glad I didn't go to the bank first, you know, it can be that simple, it can be that elemental. Yeah, but you write down, you start keeping track of the hit that you get, and then where you were, and what time of day it was, and what you were doing, because you'll notice sometimes a day you're more open than others. And then also, one of the reasons this was called women's wisdom was because so much of women's work doesn't require a lot of your mind, especially like carding and spinning wool and fabric. And women historically would like go into trances or have visions while they were doing that. But what I first noticed when I was given this exercise was that I would always get intuitive hits when I was driving along the S-curve on 101 North. So this is how crazy and random, actually not crazy, but like interesting it can be. So don't judge yourself and don't rule anything out. And then I would always get one of my best friends, her marriage was deteriorating, and I would always get information about them when I was washing dishes. And it was just kind of like, okay, just go write it down. And if you follow the directions on the journaling exercise, after a while you'll notice patterns, and then you start to understand what yours is. Like for me, being kinesthetic, I don't really get goosebumps or chicken skin or the hair on the back of my neck. I get feelings in my chest. And if it's a yes or a do this now, it's up higher. And if it's a no or a stop right now, it's like at my diaphragm. And it took me a long time to make peace with that, and okay, that's me, and carry on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So start paying attention.
Yeah, pay attention. I hope I made enough of those for everybody. If you don't, my business card is on the table. Take one on your way out, and then call me or email me, and I'll get you one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So it's after 8, and we should probably wrap up. There's a lot more I can do. There's a lot more I can talk about. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Yeah. Any other questions or concerns or anything in closing? Yes.
A grounding exercise before we leave.
Okay, we're gonna do this real quick. All right. So what I want you to do is sit up straight in your chair and get as comfortable as you can. Close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And we're gonna start by calling in all the gods, the guides, the guardians, the angels, the archangels of all faiths and from across all time and space. We're going to call in your ancestors as well as the spirits of the land and the sea and the sky. So take some deep breaths, and we're going to ask them to join us in a clearer, stronger way. One that we can better see and hear and feel. We ask them to help us to feel their presence and their grace and their love and the magic that they bring. So take some deep breaths, and we're going to ask them all to link up and sync up and work together for our highest good, our greater good. And we're going to take some deep breaths, and we're going to say thank you. And now I want you to gently drop your head, letting your chin rest on your upper chest or as close to it as you can get comfortably. And take a deep breath. And then another one. Yeah, good. Now turn your attention, your mind's eye, downward towards your feet. And then send it past your feet to the floor. And then past the floor to the ground this building sits on. And take a breath. And then another one. And now in your mind's eye, I want you to greet the earth as if it was a person. Say hello. Take a deep breath, and then take another one. And make a little mental note of the response you get back and how that makes you feel. Take a deep breath, and then take another one. And then make a note of the vibrational tone of the earth. Is it open and inviting? Or is it closed and defended? Or something in between? Is it warm or cold? Make a mental note of that. And take a deep breath. And take another one. And then ask her how you can better stay connected to her. What would be good for you personally? Now take a deep breath, and then another one. And ask if she has any other messages or guidance for you today. Take a deep breath, and then tell her thank you. Tell her that you have to go for now, but you'll be back. So take one last deep breath. And when you're ready, bring your attention back up to the ground underneath the building, to the floor of the building, to your feet, to your body, and then when you're ready, back into the room. Yay. How many of you cried? Yeah. Freaking sobbed the first time I did that. It was like, how many times she loves me? She's really nice. Yeah. How did that feel? Who wants to share?
I felt it was very joyful.
Yes. Yeah. The juxtaposition between the joy of the actual earth and the often struggling nature of material plane existence, it never occurred to me that there could be those two things in one life on this planet. Yes?
I think it caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting expecting to feel the amount of emotion I just felt. Yeah. It felt good, but it was also like, ooh, I wasn't ready for all that.
Yeah, that's why this is the first exercise. This is literally the first exercise I was given. Susan Powers, I've mentioned her a number of times, she was teaching at the Berkeley Psychic Institute, which in the 80s was the preeminent psychic schools in America at the time. And she retired, she moved down here, and I had the great good fortune to be just trying to find my way with this when she came here, and I don't even remember who connected us, but she was instrumental. And I studied with her quite a bit in the beginning, and the first probably 6 months was all different kinds of grounding exercises, and then like chakra awareness, chakra clearing and cleaning, really trying to connect your soul with your body, the soul with your different energy centers, and your soul with the earth. It was not, you know, glitter and glow sticks. It was real, like, be here now kind of stuff. And so, you guys had such great questions. I didn't get through half the material I had written, so that makes me really happy. And so we'll have to do this again sometime. Is there anything else we need to do before we close? And thank you for letting me go along. Yeah. Yes.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
I asked my father when
Yeah.
he passed many years before, because I wanted to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I was given instructions to look at a picture of him and ask him these questions.
Yeah.
He showed up, and I wasn't ready for him. So all I gotta say is, if you're asking for help, be ready for it. Have your questions ready, because I was not prepared.
Yeah. And it reminds me, being Southern people have sayings and cliches and slogans for everything. Grandma used to always say, be careful what you pray for, because you will get it. And it doesn't it doesn't arrive in the package you expect. And so one of the other things that I thought about giving you guys, but I was afraid it would scare you, and so I didn't, but I'm glad you brought this up, because it'll just kind of segue, is as you are on your hero's journey, no matter how much you dabble in your intuition, you will need support. And some of it's community, and then some of it's a wide array of trained professionals, massage therapists, Reiki masters, acupuncturists, different kinds of shaman and energy workers, astrologists, numerologists. The list is endless. And when I was going through it, and that's one of the things we bonded over, is like checking out everybody between here and LA. Like, who's good? I just had a session with so-and-so, and it moved something I've been trying to move for years, yay. Or I just had a session with so-and-so, and I didn't move the needle. Give me 3 weeks in May. But, yeah, doing therapists, especially EMDR, I'm a really big fan of that, especially for those of you who have suffered trauma and have PTSD or complex PTSD. The research behind that is so powerful, and it's such a shortcut, and it enables you to laser target whatever's dogging you. So anyway, there's a lot of resources, especially back to the vibrational tone of Santa Barbara. It's like, this is a healing place, and a lot of us are here so we can do that piece of our hero's journey. So thanks for being here, thanks for